The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by
the worst doctor in cinematic movie history, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. Anthony, what are we talking about this week, buddy?
Yep. So we're back with the Human Centipede full sequence.
For 2011.
Yeah. And we usually try to start off with content warnings.
Hard content warning if you didn't already need it.
Yeah. Like, usually our content warnings are, we're going to be talking about a movie that has some sketchy stuff in it, but this movie...
That's the point, right?
Yeah, there's like no way we can even talk about it without talking about some really horrific things. So, extra double content warnings here for...
We're going to some places. So let's go ahead and start this off. Full nudity, genital assault on multiple levels. Attack, the R word, the one that's an action, as well as one that describes a person of diminished capabilities, I guess.
Also,
or different capabilities.
Baby death, infant
baby death. Yeah.
There's
possibly twice over. One was alluded to. One was very visible on scene.
Right.
Gore galore. Mm-hmm. This can go either way. If this is your fetish, or this is something that'll definitely triggered me. Mm-hmm. The scatological effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like we've covered all the bases pretty much. If this one's only viewed by like 5 people, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, we might kind of gloss over the plot a little more than usual in this one because it's a rough one. But yeah, if there's anything that you're feeling a little about, you may want to skip this one because it's got a little bit of everything.
I think we unanimously agree this is the most unpleasant that we've done so far.
Yeah, hands down. Like it's that kind of movie that like I watched it and like it kind of ruined my day, like it was like for the next couple hours I was just like, man, I'm in a weird mood, and it was just because I had watched everything that happened in this.
You know what the worst part is though? There's a good movie in here somewhere. Like an actually legitimately good thriller in here. The problem is I feel like Tom Six just didn't want to restrain himself. He's like, you know what? Let's see what shit we can get away with, since we got away with so much in the first one.
It had, like there is an interesting idea here. It's kind of funny. It kind of has some parallels to Hotel Transylvania too, in that like it has a good idea. It doesn't necessarily nail the landing on it. Mm-hmm. And it also is kind of disjointed in that it's trying to squeeze a lot in, so the plot kind of like feels clunky. Like it's not quite as montagey as Hotel Transylvania 2, but it kind of is in a way. Like there's just the first 2/3 of the movie are like the same thing over and over again, kind of leading to the moment.
You're correct. There's a lot of repetitiveness in this movie, which is odd. But I feel like if they had stretched it out, probably, it's going to sound weird, another 30 minutes and avoid all the assaults on genitals. Already we're pulling ahead as far as and even add a central protagonist / antagonist to Martin's journey.
Yeah.
Versus just him going through, and it's almost like Tom Six is insulting his fans. Well, not insulting him, but calling him out.
In a
Like,
way,
you sick
yeah, for
bastards.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that the line in Jason Lives where like
Yeah.
the gravedigger's like, what kind of people are into this
People
kind of
have-
thing?
Yeah, they're into some weird stuff. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, it's that similar thing, but it's definitely it's a lot more cruel. It's not as like winking as Friday the 13th 6 for sure.
But oddly enough, there's some actual comedy in this, which is another weird thing. It's just so like disjointed.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess let's get into this thing.
Right.
Start
It
off
has
black
kind
and
of
white.
So it's black and white, which is it has a very different vibe right out of the gate. But it actually it picks up exactly where the last movie left off. Like we're back in Dr. Hyder's bedroom after we see Jenny die again and Lindsay alone there crying, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't I had no idea what to expect. So I was like, I guess we're seriously going to see what happens to Jenny next. But then. Credits. It's the end credits of the movie, and we see that we've got a person watching Human Centipede 1.
Yeah, the person that we'll know as Marty is best described as greasy. And of course he's coughing and wheezing, and it's like, oh, maybe that'll pay off. It kind of does, kind of doesn't. But yeah, he's in his position as a garage clerk, I guess.
Yeah, it's like
Or
an attendant
security guard.
/ maybe security guard, because he does have a gun.
Right, and a crowbar.
Yeah.
Boy, does he know how to use both.
Yeah. But yeah, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, I'm into this. Like, I like this kind of meta thing where it's like, okay, so in the world of this movie, the first movie existed, and now we've got a fan of the first movie, which I think is a really cool idea. And is, of course, what we were alluding to, where he's kind of like, Tom Six is, putting this guy as like the surrogate for all the fans of the first movie and then making him incredibly unlikable. So it does feel like it's kind of a middle finger to his fans in a way.
Right. But it's weird, though, because in his unlikability, he does kind of become likable. It does the full circle around, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't get me wrong, this guy's a piece of crap, and obviously he would not be fun to visit in real life or, interact with in real life at all. Mm-hmm. Because there's a better than no chance that you'll end up as part of a human centipede. But just the fact that he takes such glee in his work.
Mm-hmm. And we also see that his life is really rough.
It's terrible. It's the worst.
And so you spend that much time with him, and you see how awful his life is, and it's hard not to feel some amount of sympathy for him. Mm-hmm. Despite all the terrible things that he does.
Yeah.
And he is that sort of passionate obsession with a specific topic. Could definitely relate to that. But I'm not going to be making a Frankenstein monster. Yeah, we're going to try to find healthy ways to look at our obsessions instead of this method here.
Good grief! Is there a Human Centipede podcast, Anthony? Is there? You've got to avoid it at all costs. All right. So, yeah, we're going to start off, and after Martin finishes watching the first movie, effectively, we then see a guy and a girl getting in a fight in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Or parking garage.
Yeah, so he's, of course, he's got a monitor there where he can watch the security cameras, and this kind of becomes the through line for a good chunk of the movie. He sees some people, in this case, it's this couple arguing. He grabs a crowbar and goes and finds them, and then immediately just shoots them. No warning, no dialogue, which that's a thing. Martin doesn't speak for the whole movie.
At all. He laughs and giggles, and that's it.
Yeah, and people say things about, you told me this. So, he is capable of speech, but he just doesn't when we're watching him. So it's it's definitely, a choice to, not have him verbalize what he's doing. So we just have to sit with his thoughts in a way, if he talks, I don't know. I think it makes it a little worse. If he was talking, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get where this guy's coming from. But instead, we have to visualize and figure out what he's thinking. And so
that's so much better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just puts us in his head more, which is not a good place to be.
No, it's very, very toxic. But, and also, Martin's very tactical about his shots, right? So he shoots the guy in the foot, and he kneecaps the girl, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Which, I feel equal opportunity, you should kneecap them both, right?
Yeah.
That's so dark, I'm sorry. But of course, Martin's weapon of choice is then the crowbar, which he then follows up and brains both people. So, Anthony, have you wielded a crowbar before?
Not as an attack weapon, but I've used one in real life.
They're pretty heavy, right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there is a very slim margin of error between knocking someone unconscious and just outright murdering these people.
Yeah, so I know that, like, I guess one of, like, the taglines for the first movie was 100% medically accurate. And then one of the taglines for this one was 100% medically inaccurate. Which, because, like, he hits everybody with a crowbar in such a way that, like, I think a lot of these people would be dead or at least like vegetables. They would not be, waking up.
They would not be able to participate.
And then not only that, but occasionally later, like, people will wake up and he will hit them again and it's just like, no, there's no way that all these people would survive as long as they do.
That does kind of lead into one of the funnier scenes in the movie, but we'll talk about that when we get there. I don't want to spoil the surprise. Yeah, and then also the bullet wounds, I feel like would take out a few people, right? Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, the headshots that we see, they do their job as they should. But it's like once you get shot in the chest, there's not much coming back from that.
True. Yeah. So once he gets them both unconscious, he binds them with duct tape. And then pulls up his work van and throws them both in the back, and there's already another guy in there. So
right,
this is an ongoing project for sure.
Right. Also, where's his boss? I feel like somebody should be watching him and be like, "Hey, man, I just saw you take out a couple people." Maybe that was the guy. Maybe his boss was the first one.
Yeah, that is another thing. Like, in the first movie, like, Hyder had the cops on him quick, In this, like, Martin gets away with so much shit that it's like somebody would have figured out, like, gotten on to what he was doing.
This movie takes place over at least 3 days, if not more.
Yeah.
And I feel like after day one, he would already have the cops on him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So then, once he just throws them in the van, he just goes right back to work, sits down in his office, rewinds the movie, starts it over again, and then
lovingly strokes his scrapbook of the movie.
Yeah, he has this elaborate scrapbook with, like, pictures of the actors and drawings and all kind of, this is like his one passion in life.
And in his gel pen, he's written 100% medically accurate.
And then he sees that there is a guy angry about a vending machine. He sees on the monitor, I think it took his money or whatever, and the guy, like, turns and, like, yells at the camera, like, "What the fuck's wrong with this machine?"
Right, we can't really hear it, but we definitely see it on his like, reading his lips. It's clearly, "Fuck this machine."
Yeah. Then we just cut to, like, later Martin driving, so we don't see what happens there, but based on the trajectory of this, and clearly that guy also got.
He's in the van, yeah.
Yeah.
So then we cut to a gentleman showing Martin around a building. The lights flicker a couple times, and he's like, "Hey, just sign the fucking lease, let's go."
Yeah, he's like, it's like this sort of an industrial warehouse space, and he's like, "I've got several people interested, and they're willing to pay cash, so, I don't want to fuck around. Like, if you want this place, you got to tell me now."
Martin decides he does want it. He wants it enough just to shoot the guy and kill him.
And he does, this is a guy that he does not use for his plan. Like, he, like, guts him. Like, it's like...
You are not centipede worthy.
Yeah, he gets, like, disemboweled instead. But, and then he just goes outside, takes down the "for rent" sign off the building. Right. So now he's got his workspace.
Another question, where's the rest of the office managers that are like, our guy didn't report back, even if that was, like, the president or something? I feel like he would have people under him.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure there'd be, like, showing this location at this time. They would go there, and
plans are ruined already.
Yeah. And so then it just cuts to, like, a little later, and Martin's got all of his captives unloaded in the warehouse space. Some of them are awake, and they're kind of, like, screaming and whimpering through, duct tape mouths.
As you would be.
Yeah. And he just starts with the first girl we saw that was arguing with her boyfriend. He starts cutting her clothes off.
Yep, because you got to, right?
Yeah, to do the human centipede thing, everybody's got to be naked, and of course, the boyfriend is like panicking at this because I mean they're both everybody's panicking, but I think he's like trying to get to his girlfriend to help her, and he can't.
Right.
And then we finally start to get a little bit of like, what is Martin's deal? We cut to him like at home in bed later. There's this weird, you hear this dialogue, like at first you're like, what the fuck is this? But it seems like it's him remembering something or auditorily hallucinating something that happened in his past.
Yeah, initially it was like, oh, is this happening like above him in another thing? And that would have been terrible enough. Yeah. But no, we're going to find out this happened to Martin.
Yeah.
This probably set everything up for Martin.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to talk about it, but it's a essay from Martin's father.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause a lot of problems here in a moment.
Yeah. And so, he's in bed and his mom comes into the room and she's really just kind of like hateful and cruel to him. Right. She tells him that the doctor is going to be here soon and that he needs to get up and get ready. Right.
Well, apparently, she also calls him out on defecating himself already. Apparently, that's an ongoing issue because, gratuity. We can't just let it be. We can't just let him just have issues.
Yeah, I feel like I was trying to describe this movie without like giving plot points away to someone, and I was like, it feels like in every scene they had like a committee that was like, what's the worst thing that can happen right now, and whatever they come up with, that's where the movie goes next. And it's just like, of course he's gonna have shit the bed too. Like, it's just because we got to have more gross stuff if we can. Yeah,
it's almost like a dark John Waters movie, right?
Yeah.
So but we do get a brief cut. Now, is this a younger Martin, or is this Martin's father with 3 dogs? To reference the first movie.
Yeah. I'm not sure if if it was supposed to be him or his dad. But so he like gets out of bed and again flips through his scrapbook that he keeps hidden under his mattress, like like a teenager with like porno mags.
And you get a headshot of one of the actresses from the first one. I believe her name is Ashlyn.
Yes. Yep. And then he hears his mom coming in, so he tucks it back under the mattress real quick and goes out to the living room where he has a pet centipede, an actual insect centipede, in a little like terrarium. And is it a mouse that he feeds it at first?
That's a really small mouse. It's a bug.
It seemed like it seemed a little big to be a bug, but it could have been, I don't know, some kind of strange bug. But either way, like he uses like long kind of like surgical tweezers and picks up something and drops it in the terrarium, and the centipede like coils around it and kills it real quick. And you can like see like the glee that he's just like excited about watching this centipede kill something.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of that's kind of a statement for him, right? That's why he's so drawn to the movie.
Yeah.
He loves the centipedes.
And so then him and his mom sit down. The doctor's already there. I don't remember if I got his name or not. So Martin sits down next to the doctor, and his mom's like sitting facing them. And
Dr. Sebring, is that who you're referring to?
Sebring, okay.
Yeah.
And the mom is like, Martin keeps talking about a centipede with 12 people. What does that mean? So again, she's saying Martin talks. He does talk. We're just not going to see it.
Right. And also, this doctor has clearly not been involved in like pop culture, because he's like, well, the centipede's kind of a phallic and combative, creature. So, it has something to do with his willy.
And he's like, like an aggressive phallic symbol like that probably, has something to do with like the abuse he received from his father.
Right. So there you go. We got it. That was, that if you had any doubts, that was him reliving that fucking trauma.
Yeah. And then, right there in front of the doctor, the mom says, I really miss my husband, and it's all Martin's fault that he had to go to jail.
Jeez. You're right. Victim blaming galore, right?
Yeah.
So clearly this is a healthy family.
And then the doctor puts his hand on Martin's thigh. So the doctor is also terrible.
Yeah, it's going to get worse, though. But, of course, because the doctor's not a great doctor, he immediately just volunteers, hey, some people that have been through his trauma, they like to mutilate their own sexual organs. I don't know I don't think that's true. Why are you telling his own mother that? Why does she need that?
Yeah, like that's something, if he's concerned about that, he should be talking to Martin about it. And, not that he's the most, if he's putting his hand on Martin's leg like that, he's not a trustworthy source anyway.
No, he has failed as a doctor. Get him out of here. Yeah.
And pretty much right after that, he's like, all right, our time's up. I got to go. So he leaves.
Literally says, this is just a passing phase. Great. Awesome, Doc. Good job, buddy.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst. And then we just cut to Martin and his mom sitting down for breakfast.
And if you didn't think this was in the UK, they're eating toast and beans.
Yeah. And she's like, I've decided to kill us both.
Right. Just casually as you can be. By the way, I don't know if we discussed the suicide thing, but, it's referenced and it's in here. Yeah. I feel like with everything else, why do we need to add to it?
Yeah.
Just assume it's in here. But also, there's an upstairs neighbor that's clearly playing, dubstep, because it's 2011.
Yeah, it's just, super loud, aggressive music. And the mom, gets a broom and bangs on the ceiling like you do. And then, seconds later, there's a knock at the door. And
literally, did this guy jump down the stairs to get there that quickly?
Yeah. And the mom just, goes and answers the door like it's nothing.
Well, and she's also like, oh, yeah, he doesn't like it when you play your music, so she's playing it on Martin.
Yeah, immediately throws him under the bus, and the neighbor's just, standing there. And this guy, he's shirtless, he's, covered in tattoos, he's just, a big, scary, intimidating dude.
Right, of course, he busts out the R word to Martin's face when he tries to get him to talk to him. And then Mom busts out, yeah, you should kill both of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so awful.
Yeah.
And... so pretty much the mom, when the neighbor just kind of laughs at that, the mom just kind of pushes all the blame on Martin, and then the neighbor just beats the shit out of Martin and leaves.
He does a table flip, a table flip, smacking the mom in the face with the table, basically. And then, he just goes to town on Martin.
Mm-hmm. The very next scene is Martin peeing it's black and white, but it looks like he's probably pissing blood from the beat down.
If it's not blood, that man needs to hydrate better.
Yeah. And then from there, he's back at work watching the movie again. But
this time he's taking notes and drawing sketches.
Yeah. The scene where Hyder shows his whole plan, Martin is recreating all those diagrams. And then he gets distracted because he sees a couple with a baby on the monitor going to their car. So
what does he do? Grabs his gun and bullets.
Yep. So he heads out, and they've already gotten in the car, and they're starting to drive away. So he just starts shooting at the car, which then
he pulls out a dirty Harry, and he's hiding behind a pillar of the garage. And as soon as they pull the corner, he just jumps out and starts unloading. Mm-hmm. And apparently he's hit the father in the head. Mm-hmm. So he's out. If he's not out, he should be. Yeah. And then, of course, he terrorizes the mother and the child.
Mm-hmm. The dad ends up, he opens the door, hits the dad with the crowbar to just fully take care of him. Meanwhile, the mom's, kind of gotten out and is trying to crawl away, and he hits her several times and picks up the baby and puts her back in the car and just closes the doors, just leaves the baby in the car. And,
which, thank God, right?
Yeah.
We wish we could say that.
Yeah. And we also see, so as he's throwing the couple in the van, we see that not only, so this is a mom with a newborn or with a young baby, she's also pregnant. So got another baby on the way.
Yay.
So that he just leaves that car again, how no one sees what's going on and calls the authorities. He just leaves that car just kind of half crashed in the middle of the parking garage with a crying baby inside.
Right. And what kind of shitty people just there's this baby inside this car, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk about Martin. Apparently, he's decided he's done a job very well done. So what does he do? He decides it's time to crank one out. And
turns out the doctor was right about Martin's proclivities in this case.
Well, you see, Anthony, he had he had a lot of splinters down in his groin area, so he decided to take some sandpaper and smooth it out a bit.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, you know, as far as nudity goes, like you're seeing a lot here, but it's
You're gonna
Martin.
see some penis.
Yep, Martin with some sandpaper going to town.
And whenever he brings that thing out, it's the worst. It's
worse
than all.
Never good things coming from that.
And of course, we then have two drunk ladies that are leaving for a club or going to a club, and one sees Martin, doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and they're like, I think they're kind of trying to find their car. They're a little too drunk, but the one's like, hey, there's a. I think she uses some kind of derogatory slur.
For a short person, yeah.
Yeah. But she's like, there's somebody in there masturbating, and the other friend's like, what? And she's like, yeah, come here, you can see in the window, and then
cut to them in the van.
Which, like, I think that tells you a lot. Like any kind of like horror movie, the kill scenes are like a big part of like the selling point for a movie. That's kind of what the bread and butter for a horror movie. And this movie is so gruesome and so graphic and has so much going on that it can just gloss over like a kill scene type scene because it doesn't even need it. Like it's just, we got to save some time. We got to get to the really graphic stuff. We don't need to see him shoot and beat more people with crowbars. We've got that part figured out.
By the way, if you got here and just heard that, and know that it's going to get worse.
Yeah, much worse. So then the next thing we see is those two girls added to the collection at the warehouse. All of the captives are now nude and bound and gagged with duct tape, and they're kind of arranged in a line. They're just kind of laying on the floor, but like he's starting to visualize his centipede.
Right, he's positioning them. Of course, and once again, the lights in the building flicker. But this time, Martin gets a call. Hey, it's that Jenny girl, it's Jenny. Whereas Ashlyn couldn't make it, or didn't want to make it, Jenny could, and she's excited to be part of this Tarantino film.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, he gets calls, I think 3 times over the course of the movie, and it, like, rings twice, and then instantly is a voicemail. Like, and of course, he's not going to answer the phone because he can't talk when we're watching him. But, yeah, so he's one of the people captive, like, hears this voicemail and, like, gets his gag off and is like, don't do this, Human Centipede is just a film. So, like,
right.
They heard the voicemail, and they're kind of figuring out what he's got in mind.
Yeah.
And then we just cut to back at Martin's house. His mom comes into his bedroom and just starts stabbing through the blanket of the bed. I think she thinks Martin is in the bed, but he comes just strolling in, then sees her doing this.
It's a very tense scene.
Yeah, but then he just crawls into bed. Like, he doesn't try to get the knife away from her or like he just gets into bed and is, he just like, lays down on top of the blanket in his underwear.
Right. Kind of asserting dominance to a degree, right?
Yeah, and she's just standing there, but then instead of hurting him, she just cuts her wrist with the knife, and then sees his scrapbook sticking out from under the mattress, and pulls it out. And so she cuts her wrist the way that doesn't bleed as bad, right. So she's bleeding, but she's like not necessarily in danger of like bleeding out here.
I don't know if we need to talk about across the bridge or down the river, so maybe skip that part. I don't know.
But yeah, so she finds his scrapbook and is like, what is this disgusting, you're horrible, and she starts like tearing it up, which
that's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, so Martin starts crying. This is finally like where you see some sort of like emotion out of him. And she just leaves, and he just sits there crying and kind of tries to like assemble the torn up pieces back together.
Of course, he gets the picture of Dieter as with the glasses on, staring head on to the camera, and he hugs that close to his chest.
And then to get some comfort, he goes out to his centipede tank to look at his pet, and then his mom comes running in there and starts yelling at him.
So she gets a face full of centipede for that.
Yeah, he just shoves her head down in the tank, and it like springs up and bites her on the face. And so she falls to the floor, the centipede falls off and kind of crawls away, and then Martin beats her to death with the crowbar.
And you know how you know it's to death? Well, before we see the effects, the head's extra spongy. Mm-hmm. As he just whap, whap, whap.
Yeah, this is way beyond what he's done to his captives. Like, literally the next scene, if you didn't know she was dead, she's sitting up at the breakfast table. He's placed her there, and you can see through her head.
Yeah. I don't think we need to go too much more in depth beyond that.
Yeah.
But then, now that Martin has, can we say that he's snapped, or has he been snapped the whole thing, the whole movie so far?
I mean, this definitely feels like the point where he has like gone into like berserker mode. Like,
right.
There's I think that's a term that gets kind of used a lot with like serial killers. Like, a lot of times they will be kind of like slow and methodical for years, and they'll just, they'll kill one person and wait a year or two, and then, but eventually they will hit this point where it's like, I'm gonna kill like 6 people over the course of 3 days. Right. And that's usually when they end up getting caught. But it feels like, the attack from his mom was kind of like the breaking point where he is now like all in, all gas, no brakes from here on.
Pretty much. And he's decided, hey, that dude's playing his music upstairs. Let's see what we can do with this. He takes the broom, bangs it on the ceiling, and like 0.5 seconds, the dude is there again. Bursts in, and Martin has kind of hidden himself behind the door as it swings open. So the neighbor just strolls into the kitchen, sees the dead mom at the table, and is like, what the fuck? And then Martin just shoots at him from behind. Yeah, kneecaps him, and then he's like, well, you're already on the floor. I might as well introduce you to my crowbar. Thump.
Yep. So then we just get Martin packing. So, like, again, I think kind of just breaking from his, regular life. He takes a suitcase and fills it with knives, duct tape, a staple gun.
You mean medical equipment.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's like, literally, like, has a lot of symbolism to me. Because... like, he's packing stuff that a butcher would use. Like, you got the meat cleaver, you got the steak knife. What else is there other than the funnel, which that gets a lot of use.
Yeah.
What else?
I think there's like 2 staple guns. There's
the hammer? Yeah.
Yeah, some rolls of duct tape. It's like the kill bag, it's just terrible stuff. So next we just see Martin back at work, and he's watching
Human Centipede. Himself here?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
I put the same thing. Like, I think that's what happens. I put a question mark. Like, he's watching the scene in Human Centipede where, the shit scene, and it seems like he gets excited and
joins in.
Yeah. While that's happening, he looks over and sees that on the monitor there's a couple having sex in a car.
This is probably one of the grossest scenes of the movie.
Yeah, like, this movie it keeps escalating. So, like, if at any point something seems like this, I need to step out. This isn't like fast forward 30 seconds and you're good. This is like, wherever you hit your breaking point, just dip out and just don't because it's just going to keep getting worse from here.
It really is. So we find out that I don't think we need to discuss the dialogue, right? Like, that's a little too much. So anyway, it turns out that there's a gentleman who has hired a lady of the evening to service both him and Dr. Sebring from earlier. Dr. Sebring is enjoying the servicing. However, he does wish it was Martin that was servicing him. That's awful.
Yep, Dr. Sebring just says that to his friend and to the sex worker.
Of course, he also uses the slur, not his actual name.
Yeah. It's just real terrible.
And of course his friend suggests that they go to a certain location to do that sort of thing. A certain country to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, he's like, I know where you can get whatever you need.
Which is fun. That's fun.
And then Martin just appears standing next to the car and just shoots the guy in the front seat.
That's the chest shot.
And then the sex worker gets out and starts running. He fires at her a couple times, but she manages to get around the corner. We'll get back to her shortly.
Right, I thought he missed. It turns out he may have not missed with one.
Yeah. So then the guy in the front seat gets out and...
gets brained.
Yeah, he gets hit with the crowbar, and then Dr. Sebring gets out and is like,
he tries to talk himself out of this.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Martin, it's, he's but nope, Martin is justifiably.
He says the worst thing. He says the worst possible thing he could have said. He says, imagine what your dad could have, and then pow.
Right.
It's like,
And Martin's not interested in using him for the centipede, so he gets a double tap to the dick and to the brain.
Which, fair, man. That's fine.
Yeah, this one, I can't fault Martin on this one.
No. You're totally justified.
Yeah.
Is Dr. Sebring actually... I guess Dr. Sebring is actually worse than Martin.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if Dr. Sebring had been a good doctor, Martin might not be where he is,
Correct, but he's also a shit doctor and a shit person.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So then, now that he's taking care of those two guys, he heads in the direction that the sex worker ran. And he actually passes the car from the couple earlier. Right. The baby's still in the car, and he just walks right past it.
He waves. He waves at the kid.
But, I'm not sure exactly how much time has passed, but with a baby, there's, I can't imagine that baby would still be alive.
No.
Whether from no food or heat or cold, whatever the weather is, something would have, I don't think that baby would still be alive in that car.
No, it definitely, dehydration probably would have, unfortunately, done the job.
Yeah. So he goes around the corner, and there is our sex worker. She's bleeding out on the stairs. Martin starts to kind of approach her, and she, again, kind of tries to, talk her way out of it.
But she looks like she's succeeding until she busts out the pepper spray. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which good for you,
Yeah, she's trying. So she maces him, but... then it just cuts, so we don't know what happened to her, but we'll see her again later. Mm-hmm. And then Martin later gets another voicemail from the manager, and it ends up that Ashlyn Yenny, who played Jenny in the first movie, is going to be landing soon and needs to be picked up, and she's really excited about getting to try out for this Tarantino
film. You love it.
Yeah.
So when he does pick her up, she's kind of nervous, but she's nervously talking. And because, it's a movie, she's a stereotypical, I guess what Tom Six considers like a stereotypical star, even though, not to insult Miss Yenny, but I wouldn't necessarily call her a star right now. Maybe in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely it's one of those as themselves kind of roles where she's kind of playing a heightened sort of self-mocking version of herself.
Right.
Martin gets so excited about what she's telling him that he goes into this long coughing fit, and she's super grossed out by it.
Well, she literally says, I'm kind of a germaphobe, and then he cues the hacking and wheezing.
Yeah.
So it's oh, that's funny. That's actually funny. Yeah.
And then they get to the warehouse, and she assumes this is where she's going for her audition.
Right, but she sees the car, and she's like, oh, that must be Quentin's car.
Right. And he leads her inside and then knocks her out with the crowbar.
Well, she sees everybody, and she's like, oh, shit. And then, bam.
Yep. And then we just cut to her getting her clothes all cut off while all the other captives are whimpering and crying.
As you should.
Mm-hmm. And then we see that Martin managed to recapture his pet centipede after killing his mom, and it's now in a terrarium there at the warehouse. So he's pretty much completely moved his operation to the warehouse. He feeds the centipede, then just kind of looks over his collection of captives and opens up his bag of tools.
Yeah, in his doctor's coat, by the way, and nothing else except for some tidy whities.
Yeah. Most of the people are now, they're awake and kind of in pain and fear, whimpering and stuff. And so he just goes around and knocks them all back.
This is funny, though. This is legitimately laugh out loud, dark humor. Mm-hmm. Because he does walk around to each and every one of them, one by one, and just dink, 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 he's just turning out the lights on each of them.
Yeah, so he does not, you could buy some kind of sedative, some kind of ether or whatever, and
nope,
not.
He ain't got time for that.
Yeah, not cause all this brain trauma, but nope, he's just, got his crowbar. That's all he needs.
Yep.
And so, from here, we're obviously getting into him making the centipede, and it's gonna, some of, like, if you're into, like, gore effects, some of this is actually really impressive. Like, it's unpleasant as hell, but, like, it's like,
Yeah, oh yeah.
wow,
Well,
this
okay.
looks real in ways that you don't usually see.
I'm not going to talk about too much, but when he's bashing out the shitty dude neighbor from earlier's teeth, oh my god, each and every tink, tink, tink was like, oh no, stop this.
Yeah, the teeth part's bad, and then he does the kneecap surgery that Hyder did, but like you see all of that too. Like he cuts the knee, pulls the tendon, snips the tendon with scissors, and like it looks very, very real. Like it's. Like I was like, holding my knees while I was watching it. Like it's just,
Right?
it's very visceral.
Ugh. Well, also during the whole process, he accidentally kills the pregnant lady from earlier.
Yeah, like he kind of earlier there was a point where he like put his ear up to her belly and listened to the heartbeat, and this time when he goes over to her, he can't hear anything, so he drags her to a corner, throws a tarp over her.
Yeah.
And
well, she's of course there with the building owner, right? That's just his general disposal area.
Yeah. And then when he tries to do the like butt incisions that Hyder did to like really attach the people.
Yeah, he kills another guy that way somehow.
Yeah, I think he like cuts too deep and like the guy just kind of bleeds out. And so he drags him over into the corner and then decides instead of doing that whole surgery.
Well, he visibly cries over the guy too, which is interesting. Like he actually, in a weird, sick way, cares about each segment of his centipede.
Yeah, it's like it's basically like a kid that has just broken a toy, and like it's they broke the toy because they weren't treating it well, but as soon as it's broken, they start crying because they don't want it to be broken.
Exactly. But as you said, he decides to use the staple gun for ass to mouth instead of doing the surgery method.
Yeah, so he just like staples the people's lips. Like that's it. Like it's a much simpler procedure, but like obviously less effective.
Yeah, we ain't classy. We're just going for them staples. But of course, after he's done, he's really proud with his work. He's so proud he does his little happy dance.
Yeah.
As the centipede walks around him, that's wild.
Yeah, and so he wanted the 12-person centipede, but he lost 2, so he's got a 10-person centipede.
Hey, that's better than a 3-person centipede.
Yeah. And so he pulls out a little like hand mirror, again similar to the last movie. You gotta show your monster the mirror. So he kind of like goes down the line and shows all of them themselves, and they're crying and whimpering.
Yeah.
Of course, the most important person, the front person in the centipede, is Ashlyn Yenny.
Well, hey, at least she got the upgrade from the middle, right?
Right. But he, it's time to do the feeding, so he pours a can of chili into a dog food bowl.
What's the chili? I thought it was actually dog food.
Yeah, I hope it was chili, but yeah, either way.
We'll go with chili. With chili. But, Miss Yenny, Ashlyn, she's too good for that shit. So she just takes the dog bowl and chucks it.
Yeah.
Good for her.
And yeah, that obviously angers Martin. And so he gets out the funnel you mentioned earlier and forces it down her throat. Yeah, it does like tube feeding basically with some soup, some kind of like cream of chicken soup or something.
Yeah, it ain't great. But then he gets more news. It turns out that Miss Yenny's co-stars from the first Human Centipede, the Centipede co-stars, I guess, hey, they've decided they now want to take part in Mr. Tarantino's audition.
Yeah, so he's all excited about that, but the centipede is all, everyone's just like screaming in agony throughout all this, and it's starting to kind of like overwhelm Martin. Like it's, which again is similar to the last movie. You had that moment where Hyder was like, I should have cut out your vocal cords. Shut up. I need some rest.
Martin does decide to take it one step closer with his pliers.
And removes Ashlyn's tongue, which is really, again, very, very graphic, very brutal. Yeah. Then we get another really difficult scene.
Can we describe it only as the shit scene?
Yeah. So we get that in, but like the funny or like the sort of humor part of it is that like Martin really wants that scene. Like, you know, clearly
he wants it.
He got really excited when he watched the movie earlier, and you know, like it's a part that interests him in some way. So he's like trying to get them to do it, and he's
expressing their stomachs.
Yeah, he's like
trying to
probing at their bellies. He's just like making like fart sounds with his mouth to try to encourage them to. Right.
So you know what he wants without him saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he decides that this method is not working for him. So instead of giving them just laxatives, I mean, I guess he can't give each person a laxative, he decides he's going to inject everyone with laxatives.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be quicker? Would that...
So that was, I noticed, so like the bottle that he had sitting there said like for oral use only. And like he filled up the syringe, and I was like, would that work if you just injected it into the blood? But then it's hard to see what he's doing, but I think he's jamming the needle through their cheeks and injecting it into their mouths so that they have to swallow it. I think. I'm not. It's. I mean, either way, you know,
whatever he's doing, it works.
Right. And yeah, so this is the scene. Everybody gets violently ill. It's very cartoonish.
It's so cartoonish. But Martin is fucking loving it. Like, this is what he came for.
Yeah, like there's the sounds are really loud. Also, so this movie's all in black and white, but there's some coloration in this scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was like, are my eyes deceiving me? But yeah, there's you know how they like in Schindler's List where they make the girl with the red dress.
Well, in this case, it's brown.
Yeah. There's some brown in this scene, and it's it's
stupid, and it hits the camera, which
yeah.
It's like, why did we have to go that far?
Yep, it's just, but yeah, like you said, Martin is loving it until
the smell hits him.
Yeah, and then he ends up having to throw up because it's just, it's too much.
It's like if 10 people just shit all at once.
Right. And then that somehow excites Martin even more. And this is probably the most unpleasant thing in the whole movie.
Barbed wire. He wraps barbed wire around his junk and goes to town on the back end of the centipede.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way we can say that.
Yeah, and it's the girl from the first scene. So like, it seems like he had a thing for her from the beginning, and so it's just it's very, very difficult to watch. Like hands down the most unpleasant thing I have watched for this show, and possibly outside of this show. It's up there.
It's pretty close to my number one if I hadn't seen Human Centipede for the final sequence.
Oh boy, that makes me looking forward to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, guess what? We do have some good news, Anthony. It turns out that the pregnant woman from earlier is fine. She just gets up and starts bolting. Of course, her water breaks mid-run. Mm-hmm. But after Martin has done what he's done, he's too tired to continue. He's in his refractory period, I guess.
Yeah, so she manages to get outside to the car, which that car is the guy who showed Martin the place, right? That's where that car came from. Yeah. And she gets in. It's like the doors are miraculously not locked. The keys are in the car, and somehow it wasn't stolen.
Right.
And
she does try it a couple times.
Yeah, and it won't start. But of course, she locks the doors as soon as she gets in. And then Martin manages to catch up to her and is banging on the glass. And
another tense scene.
Yeah, it's really intense because it's you've seen scenes like this where the car won't start at the most important moment and it just ratchets up the tension.
But she has the baby on the floorboard, and I don't want to push this too much further. She does get the car started, and then she puts the pedal to the baby's head. We're just going to end it there.
Yeah, and so she screeches away and manages to escape Martin.
Martin alone in the rain in his tidy whities and lab coat.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of life she's going to have after this, because it's a lot of brutality she's had to deal with, and
Possibly losing 2 children.
Yeah. And so then Martin comes back inside and sees that the centipede has torn itself in half.
Right. The dubstep guy specifically has ripped himself free.
So yeah, now we've got 5 and 5. And they're both trying to crawl away, but we've seen that even a 3-person centipede is not very dexterous. No. So 2 5-person centipedes are not going to get far.
Right. Well, at this point, Martin's realized his toy is officially broken.
So he just starts like execution style shooting each part of the centipede in the head.
But then we also have Ashlyn making her way over to the light switch, so she's going to try and fight back some way somehow.
So yeah, she manages to get the lights off, and then Martin gets to the lights, flips the switch back on, turns, and there's Ashlyn holding the centipede terrarium, and she throws it at Martin.
Okay, this is also funny in that, like, as he's kind of like, they do have a little bit of a stare down at this point, right? And he's almost like, okay, I forgive you. You get to live. You get to make it out of here. Well, that is until she literally claps his nuts, which that's all kind of fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
like literally just right in his junk. He goes down. As he's down, she's like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to make this guy feel like such an asshole. She grabs the funnel, grabs the centipede, shoves it both in his keister, and now he's got a centipede squirming in his guts. So that's fun.
Yeah, and he's like in agony, like he's like screaming and kind of like twitching and squirming. And he had run out of bullets, so he now has a knife.
Switched a knife.
And
which
so
is painful. Like he's going around slicing everybody's throat. That's not great.
Yeah, so he ends up stabbing her to death, and then leaves the warehouse, still clutching his stomach in agony. And then we just hear a car drive off, and then we cut to Martin back at work, watching the Human Centipede.
As the kid's crying in the car.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, like, you hear a baby cry, and I was like, is that the baby in the car? Is that, memory from earlier when we had young Martin crying and hearing his dad? So is this, he just went right back to work after all this fell apart? Or was this all a dream?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it was all a dream, that would be way better than everything else that happened. Because you would think he would be arrested at this point, right?
Yeah, you think he'd be arrested, or if he had that centipede inside him, that like something bad would happen from that.
Jeez, what a daydream to have a centipede shoved in your butt. I'm sorry.
And yeah, so then it just cuts to credits, and we hear like last time we had like Lindsay cry for the first like 10 or 15 seconds of the credits. This time we hear that baby cry like all 2/3 of the way through the credits, like almost the whole credits. It's just crying. It's just making you just sit in that unpleasant feeling.
Yeah. So that was a very unpleasant movie.
Yeah. It's something. It's definitely a difficult watch. I know, like, I've been talking to people on some of our people on social media about this, and it sounds like there's some of you all who are fans of this, and some of you all who have like refused to watch it, like I have all these years. And
I understand both sides.
Yeah. I'd say if you've avoided this one for this long, like, I feel like Human Centipede 1, I could see myself recommending that to like diehard horror fans. Like, I'm not going to be recommending it to like my like normie friends,
Right.
Like the people who are into like the dark stuff. Human Centipede 2, I don't know that I could recommend that one to anybody.
No. But like the first one's kind of classy to a weird degree, right?
Especially now that I've seen the second one, it makes the first one look a lot more tame in comparison.
Boy, I can't wait to see or hear your feelings on the next one. I don't want to hype it up or play it, I don't want to make it seem worse than it is, but I don't think you could, frankly.
Yeah, and like, again, I think the whole sort of like meta narrative of the movie existing in this movie, I like that. I think that's kind of cool. Commenting on like horror fandom and like the way that can like cause weird, unhealthy obsessions in some people. I think that could have been done in a way that was a little less unpleasant. Yeah. But at the same time, it's kind of like funny games, like I know Michael Haneke, is that the director? He's talked about that, like he does not like violent movies. He's not a horror director, but like Funny Games is a really unpleasant horror movie, and that's on purpose. Like he's like, if you want to see this shit, like you should have to live in that and realize that it's a horrible, unpleasant thing.
Yeah, you don't get the happy ending.
Yeah, and so I get that. Like I get that. Like, this is the dark stuff, and like we're not going to show you a sanitized version of it. We're gonna make it really dark and really unpleasant. Again, it does feel like it's gratuitous in points. Like the thing with like the baby, or like I'm gonna use barbed wire for the assault scene, like that kind of stuff. Like that's beyond reality. That's just to make it as edgy as possible. Yeah, and that feels a little, or that part feels unnecessary to me, like gratuitous above and beyond. But I get that that's what he's going for. Yeah,
but also, if he just tamed himself a little bit, it would have been a much better movie.
Yeah, and I feel it seems like Tom Six is kind of like that's his whole deal, is that he wants to be edgy and antagonistic. Like, I think he's kind of made a name for himself on social media as like just kind of like fucking with people like this. So, this definitely feels appropriate for what little I know of him. Yeah.
We got anything else to say about it?
I think that is well covered at this point.
I think so as well. So it's clear now that Hotel Transylvania is the palate cleanser.
Yes. I've never been more excited to watch the third movie in an Adam Sandler franchise as I am right now.
Holy crap. Come to think of it, is there any other like Adam Sandler trilogy or a series?
Yeah, I don't...
Like, most of the stuff's one-offs, right?
Yeah, one, maybe two, but yeah, for the most part. Yeah.
Okay. And of course, it's Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah. So,
the family picture.
Yep. So, next week we will get a welcome reprieve from the gruesome Human Centipede, and we'll go back to the Hotel Transylvania.
Right. This is not Transformania, right? Or is it?
No, Transformania is 4. So we'll have that to look forward to after the last Human Centipede.
Amazing. Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to need it.
Yeah.
Like, I hope it's stupid.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, all right.
So we were so traumatized by the movie that we forgot to do our plugs here at the end. You all know the drill. If you want to find us on any of the socials, we're at The Frankencast. You can also email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're on YouTube. And most importantly, we're at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where you can now join for a free 7-day trial. Check out, see what you've been missing, binge everything you want, and then decide if you want to stick around or not. We'd love to have you.
Well, in that case, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.
I was hoping to verify that this was the most unpleasant movie you've seen for the Frankencast.
Absolutely.
So far. Okay.
Yeah.
Good job. All right, I guess let's get this party started.
All right.
In 3, 2, 1. Let's jam.